How many of us go to a market or an event, or we have a booth set up, or we're just talking to people out and about, and we're not nearly as excited about our products and services as these kids? Did you know that we can learn business lessons from kids? Oh yeah, you're gonna be shocked and amazed like I was. Monique here of Silver Paw Studio and founder of Pro Pet Photog. This weekend I went to the farmer's market in my town, and they had an extra market attached to it that was the kids entrepreneurial market. And these were all booths by kids, and most of their products were for kids. I was really shocked and amazed at how well these kids did with their booths. I have a few categories here I want to talk about: merchandising and sales and promotional. They were on point with all of these things. I was really impressed. I was so excited that at the market, I got my lemonade and I sat down and I wrote a whole bunch of notes in my phone of things that I think we should all be reminded of as adult entrepreneurs. Oh my gosh, I can't say that word today. As adults running a business. And this probably applies no matter if you're at an event, or if you have a retail space or a display somewhere, or you're setting up at a store. Whatever it is that you're doing, you can learn a lesson from these kids at this market. Wow. All right. So I've got some categories for you. The first one being the booth setup. Their booths were on point. Their merchandising, which is how they displayed all their wares, looked really nice. Everybody had tablecloths. They had levels, they had baskets for things. Things were labeled. Prices were obvious. They had decorations, big signs. One thing that I have actually forgotten at my last two booth setups for myself has been my sign for my studio. I didn't even have a logo at my last two. These kids were all over that. Many of them had logos. I remember one booth even had a banner printed that was up behind them. And these weren't really little kids. These are probably middle school-ish age kids. Their merchandising and their display was really well thought out, and they all had it done up a little bit different, which you'd expect, but it was really nicely done. And I think sometimes we just throw things together like, oh yeah, I forgot I was going to this thing, and we just put a few things on a table. It's so boring. These kids were not boring. Not one of them was boring. I appreciated the ones too that had a specific niche, and they just did that, like those little crocheted animals with that big fluffy yarn. Oh, so much of that, so great. Let's see, their decorations. Yes, they had their logos there. They had lots of help. So as you can imagine, of course, an adult was there, whether it was their parent or another adult was there, but almost never in the foreground. So there was one booth I went to, and I can tell the mom ran a business herself because the kid just kind of sat there and the mom was doing everything. So there was, one or two of those. But for the most part, the mom sat way at the back of the booth, either 10 by 10 or farther. And they pretty much had the phone, and they can tell the kid that the Venmo went through. That's it. All the parents were doing was that. Most of these booths had more than one person, a kid at them. So I don't know if they were siblings or part of a small group, but they had plenty of help. And this is another downside I see to a lot of booths and a lot of businesses, is we try to do it all ourselves. And that's really hard. Matter of fact, when I went to get my lemonade, there was only the two people there. They had a really long line because it was 100 degrees that day. And my husband's like, you probably should get some help in. And they said, yeah, I think we'll do that. These kids had already thought of that and they were already doing it. I really appreciated that. They had help. The other great thing that they had was interactive pieces. And I've been trying to incorporate that more into my events and my booths as well. But what was really cool to me, as a photographer, little gadgety things, was the 3D printers on site. Yes, these kids had figured out how to bring a battery pack and run their 3D printers during the market. Whoa, those booths had people there. There was probably, I would say, at least 3 booths that either had 3D printed items or they had their printers going. Super cool. I just love it that we could see the process a little bit and they, could show you, okay, this is making this over here. But that interactive piece, such a good idea. Of course, some had the spinning wheel that it lands on something. One had one where it was a board and you put a little piece of wood or something in it, kind of plinkos something down. And so that was their interactive piece, but they did really well. Oh, one booth, the kids made bubbles, some kind of very natural limited ingredient bubbles that they made. And so they had a bubble machine blowing the bubbles out to people. Really smart to have interactive pieces besides just a drawing. And I've done a drawing historically at my booths, but not anymore. I'm going to level up because these kids taught me that I need to do something interactive. When I come to someone comes to my booth, it needs to be fun. They need a reason, not just here, have a pamphlet, So overall, their booth setups, A+. Now their products, they knew their products. They had all made their products and they absolutely loved talking about them. This was so fun to watch. How many of us go to a market or an event or we have a booth set up or we're just talking to people out and about and we're not nearly as excited about our products and services as these kids. I guarantee that we have all been in that place as an adult, either we're downplaying it because we're shy, or maybe we haven't figured out our spiel, or we're not as excited about our business for whatever reason right now. These kids were excited. They were telling the story of making this and choosing the color for that and why. So two different booths had food, why this was like this and why like that, and little snacks. And they were extremely excited about their products. Not only that, they were extremely knowledgeable. They knew, this product, this 3D printed kitty, we really love that. So that's why we made the dog. And it took really this long to make it. And the color comes from this and that. They knew on a deep level everything about their products and could answer any questions that you had. Really, really awesome. And just the enthusiasm and excitement, I want to have that back more in my business. Oh my gosh. I always say my pet photography, your dog and your family and your staff, whoever, is going to have the best day ever. And people feel so much better when I say that. It's not oh yes, you're going to come away with a beautiful print. Well, of course they are. The experience is going to be amazing. You're going to love it. That's exactly what these kids were portraying. And the other thing, they were so smart, this could go under the sales category too, is they would say, if you like this, then you're going to like this. How often do we say, well, they bought something from my studio. Okay, I'm good. No, they said, if you like the little dog figurine, you're probably going to like the cat figurine. Oh, you like this octopus? Here's a bigger one. Here's another one, another color. And they all knew their prices too. So this is going to go into the sales part, but that was part of products was they knew their product line enough to say, if you like this, you'll probably like this. And they would suggest it to every single person. So that's products. Now, when it comes to sales, they were also, for the most part, the booths I was able to stop at, again, it was 100 degrees. I wasn't able to stop at everybody, but they knew the price of every product. Every product had a price on it, but it was memorized. So at one booth, I did buy some 3D printed objects, and he said, okay, if you got this, this, and this, added it up in his head, and he's like, okay, that's $24. They were not shy about their price. They did not try to discount. They just knew. They just knew. And it was like, oh, okay, this is this. That's it. How much do we stress over our prices? And these kids, like, they had calculated it. This is what they had, and this is how much it is. Do you want it? Of course I do. Do you also want this? Sure. Now, obviously they're kids, so, I wanted to support them more, but I only ever buy things I really like and I am attracted to, whether it's for the sentimental value or the usefulness. I didn't just buy stuff from people, even at the children's market, that I didn't actually want. They were also really good about pulling from the crowd. So if people were walking by, most of the booths, the kids are like, oh, hey, why don't you come over and see my toy that I made? I can't wait to show you. Or however kids phrase things. Hi, come on over. They were not shy. They're like, hey, come see what I have. And the adults are like, oh, hey, that's a direct ask. How nice. And also a little caught off guard. How often do we direct ask people? That is a skill that needs to come back. We are so scared of offering our things, but if we're excited and knowledgeable, we're like, hey, come on over. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to tell you about this. There's a benefit in it for them. Huge lesson to me. They were also really good about not talking about things that didn't have to do with them. How often do we say things like, oh, the weather's so hot or cold or whatever, totally off topic, and most of the time negative. Catch yourself. If people come up to your booth and you start falling into those adult things that are like, oh yeah, we're all bummed about this, I try to remember to say, hey, oh my gosh, isn't it the best weather today? I'm so glad to see you. This is what I'm about. And then that just naturally segues into something else positive. So if you get them saying yes and being excited about one thing, then that'll continue into what you offer. So these kids did no mundane, boring small talk when you came to their booth and nothing negative. It was all like, woohoo, we're excited. We're excited for you. We're excited for us. We're going to show you our stuff. Another huge lesson when we're out doing anything, if we're in a networking thing, if we're writing something online, we got to remember these things. This was so great. And the other thing with sales is many of them had Venmo. They had Venmo, credit card, and cash. Obviously, adults set this up for them, but the kids knew exactly how to use the Venmo and they could coach everybody through it. And then they'd say, okay, hold on a second while I make sure it goes through, which we're not always great about either. They said, okay, scan it. They're going to tell me in the back if it goes through, and then the parent or the adult in the back would give a thumbs up and they're like, okay, thank you. And then we were good to go. So all their sales process was really good too. And the last thing I want to talk about is there was one booth in particular that was so organized. It was a brother-sister team, if I remember right. It was one of the booths with a 3D printer. They had, get this, a newsletter sign-up sheet and a website. I signed up for their newsletter. Like, what's a 12-year-old going to send me? I don't know. Let's find out, You know how many people I've tried to talk into having a newsletter? Adults, my age, with a business. Please have a newsletter and a website. These kids had a website and a newsletter. My mind was blown. And many of the other booths also had a website, but this was so proactive to just be on their list. They didn't offer anything. There wasn't a giveaway or a freebie or anything like that. They didn't overthink it. They just said, hey, keep in touch with us. Here's our list. Oh, okay. Like, we're adults. We know we can always opt out of the list if we ever want to. So there was a couple of booths in there of these kids that were they were doing it right. I know I'm very enthusiastic about this, but it's good to look at the basics again and look at your business. If your business is not making you that excited, then there might be something you need to change, or you might need to regroup a little bit and say, how do I want to be at these events, or when I'm networking or talking to someone one-on-one? What is it that I'm not excited about? What is it I'm going, that I'm feeling like a resistance for, that these kids have already mastered? So this is a great lesson to me to come back to the basics, to be excited, to know my products and prices and not be scared to tell people them, and to be direct and welcoming. I was very impressed. And I just had to tell all of you that too, because you're probably struggling with your business in some capacity. And so I love doing videos like this that are really uplifting. We talk about all this kind of stuff in the Pro Pet Photog Community Center as well, in our monthly meetings and our coaching calls. So if this is one of those topics that is really resonating with you, the Pro Pet Photog Community Center could be a good place for you. So I have a link for that in the description of this video too. So check that out. All right. Oh my gosh. Thanks so much for being here with me today. And as always, I wish you many woofs, purrs, and TREATSs.